Ladies and gentlemen, it is really a great pleasure for me to be with you discussing about the environmental approach in geographical studies. I think that the environmental approach is essential to carry out any type of geographical studies, maybe population studies, maybe urban geography, maybe physical geography, or biogeography, etc. So, all the branches of geography require the environmental approach, and unless and until we adopt environmental approach, it is the geographical studies will be incomplete. At the same time, I would like to underline that any type of environmental studies may be related to the environmental disaster, environmental justice, or related to the internalization of environmental calamities, or how to develop climate resilience, how to achieve climate justice. All such studies can be cannot be completed unless and until a geographical approach is adopted. And that's why I think that there is a common things between geographical approach and environmental approach. Let us see some common areas between environmental science or environmental studies and geographical studies. One thing is common that both the disciplines are the important branches of science. So, the scientific approach is adopted in both the studies, environmental studies and geographical studies as well. The second common area is that the very objective of both the studies, geographical studies and environmental studies, is mainly related to well-being of society. The objective is how to achieve well-being of the society. So this means that we are not studying environment per se. We are studying environment mainly to achieve healthy population, mainly to achieve the distribution of healthcare system, mainly to achieve well-being of mankind. We are not interested in protecting the earth or protecting ecological or regaining ecological balance, but we are more interested in well-being of society. Both geographical studies and environmental studies have this kind of approach. And that's why you see that many geographical studies are, are trying to find out how to achieve well-being of societies, maybe in medical geography or the urban geography. We study urban sprawl. Why? Why we try to find out the problems of urban sprawl? Why we are interested in understanding the problems of drought-prone areas, mainly for the well-being of society. Similarly, in environmental science, we talk about water pollution. Why we study water pollution? Because we want that no section of population should be deprived of safe drinking water. Why we are interested in studying in air pollution and air pollution monitoring? Monitoring is just a scientific discipline, no doubt about that. But in environment, this air pollution monitoring is carried out mainly to understand the risk areas where people should not wander. They should not go outside the houses. So, for example, Bhopal gas tragedy. So, the scientific truth was that in Bhopal gas tragedy, the gas which was released has certain property. It was toxic gas, no doubt about that. And the managers of that factory were knowing about all toxicity of that gas. And also, remedial measures were also known at that time. It is not new science. It is not new technology. It was there in 80s also that if that gas has a property that it repels away from the water droplets, and that's why it would have been suggested by the collector of that particular area or administration or the managers of the factory by through radio announcement or through police uh, announcement that you just cover your face, your nose and mouth and eyes with soaked towel. If this would have been done by people, I think that 90% of lives would have been saved. So this approach was not adopted, and this approach is essential in environmental studies as well as in geographical studies. And this is the objective of both the disciplines, that well-being of society. Thirdly, both the disciplines or both the subjects adopt interdisciplinary approach. Interdisciplinary means you have to take the help from other disciplines. Geography takes the help from many scientific disciplines like physics, chemistry, or astronomy, or the soil chemistry, soil sciences, as well as some disciplines like political science, social sciences, disciplines from social science groups, and disciplines from the other arts side. Means the even languages are also studied, and you know that the regional language has its own role in identifying the culture of that particular area. So there are so many studies in geography which can be uh, carried out with the help of disciplines from science, social sciences, and languages. Similarly, environmental studies also need the help from disciplines like physics, chemistry, botany, zoology, and so on. So, similarly, even social sciences like economics, political science, sociology, etc., and also languages also. And in these days, technology, GIS, and all these things. So this means that this is the common area of environmental studies and geographical studies, and that is interdisciplinary approach. The fourth one is both the studies, both the subjects carry out the human centric studies. This means that the all the discussions in both environmental science as well as in geography is centered around, is focusing on the human activities, how it is related to well-being of society that we have already seen, but how it is related to the human activities, maybe economic activities, maybe other activities, other cultural activities, social activities, how it is related to this. That is also important thing. For example, you can say that the many pilgrimages are there in Maharashtra, and we can see that most of the pilgrimages are after the onset of monsoon. This means that after the sowing season of the first crop in the year. First crop in the year in means the first kharif crop, and the many festivals are there after harvesting of kharif crops and sowing of rabi crops, and the other festivals are also there after the harvesting of the rabi crop and the sowing season for, if irrigation is possible, if irrigation is available in summer season, Baishakhi and all such festivals, you know. So this means that we are trying to find out how climatic conditions are related to human activities, and that is geographical study. The real geographer can identify that which are the regions dominated by rabi crops and which are the regions dominated by kharif crops. Those regions which get the monsoon rains, heavy monsoon rains, they are cultivating rice on the basis of the um, monsoon or rainwater, and that rainwater is harvested in a articulate manner by constructing terraces and many other, using many other uh, techniques of watershed management. We have learned those watershed management techniques from the traditional rice farming or farming of nagli, or by the all these is are the kharif crops. But those kharif crops are dominant when July maxima is there. What is the scientific study in climatology? That we receive bimodal monsoon rain. One peak is there in July and another peak is there in September. That's why we call it as the bimodal distribution. Temporal distribution is bimodal, means in July maxima as well as September maxima. You can see that when you go back to your textbook knowledge, you can see that the regions where September maxima is more significant than July maxima, then that area shows dominance of Rabi crop, and the Kharif dominated areas have July maxima and September maxima is very low. And this is the reason why some areas show Rabi season as the important agricultural season, and some areas show Kharif as the important agricultural season. So, in this way, our studies are related to human activities. That's why we call it as human centric studies. And in environmental studies, it is also a human centric study. Now, I can just uh, say about the history of the development of environmental studies. In previous era, the why environment was the environment concern for environment was found in the literature by Mahatma Gandhi, right from the Hind Swaraj, publication of Hind Swaraj in 1907. This is mainly because Mahatma Gandhi was thinking human centric. He was worried about the last man in the society. And he was thinking that if environment is destroyed, he was not worried about environment per se. He was mainly worried about people living in the environment. So that's why he suggested that if environment is to be destroyed by the Western culture or Western agricultural practices, Western industrial practices, then this kind of encroachment of Western culture in India is a very bad thing. He was telling that Britishers are our friends, but he used to tell the British leaders also that, my dear friend, please consider that your culture is not going to achieve the sustainable development of the lower class people. Your capitalistic system, Western system, is mainly meant for rich people, and a time will come that the gap between richest and the rich, and the poorest and the poor will increase a lot. And then it will damage democracy also. If environmental degradation is there, disparity is there. If disparity is there, democracy is also so will also be destroyed. So this means that the human culture is at stake, and that's why you save environment. You have to go back to the ecological relationship between man and nature. Similarly, the environmental studies became more and more popular after 60s, when that the what is that um, the impact of DDT, pesticides, etc., have have been uh, studied by the great scientist, and um, it was declared publicly, and that's why we celebrate Environmental Day. So all these things are important, and then people started uh, developing some international forum. And in 1967, people were saying that environment should be saved, and this was not accepted by people. So it was painted like that: environment versus development. This environment versus, either you want environment or you want development. So this was the uh, gimmick that was played by the great scientist, and this was not accepted by all people. Then in 72 conference also, same thing. Then people started that development is the major cause of environmental damage, and that's why development should be zero development. So you stop the development in all directions. So this means that the people were, now you just imagine the period of 70s, 80s. Naturally, poor countries were considering that environment is something like elite class baby, because they have to look after that. We are worried about hunger. We are worried about food security. We are worried about shelter, basic needs, good potable water. So that's why the societies which are mainly interested in achieving food security or good water or the even water for irrigation, the agricultural productivity. So for those societies, how you can advise that development should be stopped? This is not correct. And that's why environment has, we don't have any environmental concern. Environment is a elite class baby. It is something related to developed world. It is something related to first world. The third world countries should not look into those problems. So this was dilemma between the environment and development. But this was stopped by the Brundtland Commission. When the human centric attitude came in, then people started saying that even United Nations have changed the name of the department. So it was not environment department was converted into name of environment department was renamed as environment and development. And that's why Department of Environment and Development has given the task to the Brundtland Commission. Brundtland Commission means Brundtland, she was Norwegian Prime Minister, and she was assisted by scientists and academicians from all disciplines, sociology, political science, even languages, even and also the political leaders of the nation across the world. So that's why this Brundtland Commission has suggested they have they have formulated the concept of sustainable development. It was there in the minds of people in the tradition, Indian tradition, or even in Norwegian tradition, or even in South African tradition. The sustainable development was there in various cultures, but she has given the detailed study of detailed idea of the sustainable development. And she was not just advocating environment. She has suggested that the environment is to be studied for achieving good kind of development, and that development is sustainable development, which is based on the ethical principle that is intergeneration equity. Even later on, latest the goals for sustainable development, you can find that the first goal is poverty alleviation, disparity. You have to uh, tackle these are the challenges and how to remove that those issues. That is the real development. So the if you see goals for development, goals for the sustainability, you can find that all these human centric points have been included. And that's why the first conference was held at Rio, which is called as the first Earth Summit on Environment and Development. And that has given this definition of, that has accepted the report of Brundtland Commission, which is known as Our Common Future. So this our inverted commas, our common future, it was accepted by in that uh, conference, in that Earth Summit, which was attended by more than 192 nations of the world. So this means that the majority of the, or almost 90% of the nations have accepted the Brundtland Commission's report, Our Common Future. And that report has given the idea of sustainable development that you all know. And I think from 1992 conference or Brundtland Commission report, which was published in 1986, so 86 or 87, then geographical studies have to take the serious note about the environment, environmental concern. So you can see that the Brundtland Commission's report, if you go through that commission reports, it is not a big one. It is just some 200 plus pages, but it is articulately written and it is very interesting to read those things. Language is also very simple, no jargons are used. So, this report is something like a great geographical study. So this is, I would like to suggest that this is also a common area between environment, especially after this Brundtland Commission's report. It is the, it is definitely the human-centric approach which was already found in geographical studies. Let me just quote one thing, I think, from the, the father of modern geographer, that is some 300, 400 years ago. This Humboldt has written that the environmental studies is very important, environmental approach is important. So we are studying geography means the relationship between environment and man. He said that no, you should not say environment and man. We should call it as the man in environment. Man nature relationship, no, man in nature. And then you study the relationship between natural factors and human activities. This is the crux of geography. And the Brundtland Commission's report is also showing some geographical ideas. And this, in this way, I think that both the disciplines are quite common. The fifth point that I would like to emphasize is that the environmental science is the science of interrelationships. So, uh, what is ecology? Ecology is defined as the relationship between one living organism with the other living organisms and also non-living things in the nature. How a bird is having his own niche in a particular area, how that niche is related to vegetation cover, how that niche is related to climate, how that niche is related to soil, how that niche is related to how this existence of that particular bird is related to agricultural activities in that particular area. So all these things are studied in ecology. However, if you just say the if you introduce the human beings, then it becomes the environmental science. Ecology can be studied as ecology and environmental science approach is similar. Only thing is that ecology is worried about one living organisms and the other relationship. But here relationship between man and natural factors. The same thing you can find in geography. Geography we are studying right from the 4, 5 centuries, that it is the relationship between man and nature. See, human activities are definitely dependent on nature. Sometimes nature guides human beings, and that concept is considered as naturalism, or which is called as um, environmentalism. Then the people say that no, 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 the anthropogenic activities are more important than natural factors. And that's why they say that. So that this was the debate. We know that all these debates, right from Ratzel, Semple, then Vidal de Lavlache, So this debate, I'm not going to give you the detailed points of this, but we know that man is important was the one approach, and another one is nature is important. And there were so many stories, so many you can say that the examples are there. But Griffith Taylor, in the beginning of 20th century, so he means in 1903 or 5, when Mahatma Gandhi wrote this in the Swaraj. So in the same period, Griffith Taylor was also uh, advocating that, oh, nature is also important and human activities are also important. Sometimes the human activities appears to dominate the natural factors, sometimes or at times the natural factors dominate uh, human beings. So, flood, so at the time of flood, so we can consider that this is a red signal. So, stop and go determinism. So, this was the word coined by Griffith Taylor. Means the when red signal is there, you stop development. When green signal is there, you go ahead with your development. So this kind of relationship is there, uh, stop and go relationship. So this was given by Griffith Taylor, and uh, later on, geographical studies not only stop just seeing the uh, nature man relationship, but also the intergroups relationship is also studied by human by geographical students, the geographical scientists, scholars. And that's why we started studying this medi- uh, medical geography, or we started studying, what do you say, that the um, geography of conflicts between two nations, geography of peace. So that is also important thing. So it requires the understanding of regional ethos in one region and the same in the other, and what are the areas of conflict and what are the areas of cooperation. So this is called as intergroup relationship, inter regional relationship, and how to resolve the conflict, how to convert conflicting things into the cooperation. So at present, Ukraine and Russia, they are fighting. For what? For nothing. Is it ego? No. It is essential for the international business that this kind of war should be there. Otherwise, if you see some intergroup relationship, the Ukrainian people and Russian people, they are almost same. Their culture is also same. Their food habits are also same. Their level of development is also same. But why there is a conflict? Unnecessary. There is some conflict is introduced, and peace can easily be established if we adopt environmental approach or geographical approach, which is nearer to Gandhian approach, then it can easily be resolved. But they don't want to resolve it, mainly because they want to create a market for the weapons. So all these things we have to take into account. So this is the relationship between poor people and those people who are getting profits out of selling the missiles. So all, this is something uh, geographers and the scholars from environmental science can definitely uh, find find out the exact reason, and they can resolve the problem. Actually, you can see that the common man in Ukraine and common man in Russia, they are friends. Similarly, common people in Pakistan and common people in India, they don't have any conflict. So even they say that it is, they, in 1947 during partition, there are so many stories. The people who were Muslims in India, they were asked to go to Pakistan because uh, अब अपने अपने मजहब के लोग मिलेंगे, तो हम मजहब लोग मिलेंगे, लेकिन हम वतन लोग वहां नहीं मिलेंगे, हमारा वतन ये है. So this kind of culture is there. Culture is not dependent on the religion. Culture is dependent on the region, regional characteristics, geographical characteristics of the region, environmental characteristics of the region. And that's why this regional affinity is something different than the affinity towards the race or caste or creed or uh, the religion. So this is definitely understood by the scholars of environmental studies and the geography, and that's why they can they are quite capable of resolving the conflict between the regions, resolving the conflict between the nations. Another thing is that this relationship, we can also find out the exploitative relationship or cooperative relationship between the two nations. Now we can see that there are so many environmental issues. One important issue is One important issue is related to waste management, solid waste management, or toxic waste. How to destroy, how to destroy this toxic waste. And slowly, the rich countries are trying to sell their used material to the poor people or poor nations. So, this kind of phenomenon is studied in environmental science, which is called as Nimby Syndrome, Nimby, not in my backyard. So, this is called as Nimby Syndrome. And this Nimby Syndrome is always supported by Wimby Syndrome, WIMBY. Welcome in my backyard. So, poor people will accept it. If you just give your used shirt to a poor person, he will easily accept it. He will say that yes, yes, he will welcome the idea of giving, and you will be happy that, oh, I have given one shirt. When I was working for this the flood affected people in Maharashtra, or even the drought affected, famine affected people in Bihar. So I have seen many people are ready to donate their used clothes, and they were happy, and it was very difficult for a person, for an organization to collect those used material, used clothes, and distribute it. At times those clothes were useless. We have to throw it or we have to burn it. So they but there is the nimby syndrome is there, always in your head. There is nimby syndrome. Similarly, the rich people, they are interested in throwing their waste in others' backyard. And poor people, being poor, being powerless, being resource, being the uh, being affected by crunch of resources, so they accept those. That is called as Wimby syndrome. And this kind of Wimby syndrome and Nimby syndrome is the exploitative relationship. It is not the cooperative relationship. It is exploitative relationship. So you can see that the another thing, that exploitative relationship. So, so this can be studied in environmental science and geography as well. But you have to be uh, serious about the concern for the people. So then this interrelationship, I will just tell you that green revolution in India is considered to be a great achievement. And father of green revolution is considered as the great scientist Swaminathan, right? And anybody who is talking about against Swaminathan would be considered as a foolish person. I am one of those foolish people. I am also a scientist. I study science, but still I have traced the history and I have seen documents in the Karnala University and ICAR. And I have seen that at the same time, when Swaminathan was studying the crop ecology, there were that big department has many other projects. Some Singh and many other scientists were also studying that. They have also gone to the mm, United States of America doing some research projects in collaboration and all this. But Swaminathan was the smarter than the others, and he was working with uh, his mentor. I don't remember his name, but you can just find it out. And he has developed some Mexican variety of wheat, which was dwarf variety, and it was having high productivity, and that's why he compelled Swaminathan to get the hybrid variety with the indigenous crop so that it can grow in India. Yes, in laboratory it was successful, and Swaminathan became the father of this. So it required, I think, 5 to 6 years time to propagate the hybrid variety of wheat, which is just having the genetic characteristics of the Mexican varieties, the American varieties. Then that was the hybrid between Mexican and American and the Indian variety. So how that project was funded? That project was funded mainly from PL 480. So this means that they in American Congress, the resolution public uh, legislation. It is called as PL, means public legislation 480, means that number is 480. So that legislation was there, and what was given in that legislation? There some poor countries like India need to attain the issue of food security urgently. In United States of America, there is a bumper crop of wheat. Okay, that wheat can be exported to India. But India doesn't have that much dollar, that much amount of dollar to buy food grains. And that's why we will give them this wheat in by accepting rupee. And that rupee will be, all this money will be kept in Reserve Bank of India, and then whenever we want to use, we will use it in India for Indian projects for the benefit of social benefit of India. So this was very good, painted in a very nice manner, and it is considered to be the very good cooperative relationship. What happened to that PL 480 fund? That fund has selected Swaminathan for the selection of variety, for the hybrid variety of wheat, propagation of hybrid variety of wheat, and then this was, but the scientists warned, his colleagues warned at that time for the people, but at that time the education was not much spread. So in you can say that the It was not definitely the higher education. Most of the sections of society were deprived of reaching towards the to the level of higher education or the research activity. This may be the reason, but they have won, and it is written, and there are papers that this variety of wheat, which Swaminathan has advocated, and the selection variety of wheat. So some people have tried thousands of varieties of rice, wheat, jawar, means sorghum, and so many grains, and they were working hard. They have developed the plots, and they have come out with certain solutions, scientific solutions, that this productivity can be increased by 40%. And Swaminathan's variety was 50%. Okay, the Swaminathan's variety was number one, 50%, and this was the 40%. But difference was this variety, Mexican variety, requires 7 times watering in the period. Cropping period requires, and wheat is taken in India in Rabi season, not in Kharif. So post monsoon season. So, so this Indian variety was based on this uh, the late some monsoon means you can say that the monsoon in November or December, and then only 2-3 times watering was required. Total requirement of watering for that Indian indigenous wheat was 5 times, and for here the 7 times. American variety 7 times. The second difference was great. Second difference was this variety, being the indigenous variety, was not vulnerable to the indigenous pest around it. But this Mexican variety was something new, and it was quite weak. It doesn't have any immunity for the attack of the pest. It was vulnerable for the pest in India. And that's why they they started saying that, advocating that pesticides should be used. But we were not having now. Just think of 75 to 80. We were not having the um, the production of pesticides in India. Yes, we will give you, and we will take the money in rupee from that fund of PL 480. Means they have given us wheat free of cost, which was advertised in all over the world, but that cost was nothing but advertising their pesticides, then establishing the factories of pesticides, then making the people using pesticides and chemical fertilizers. Is it green? The green revolution is not at all green. This environmental studies can identify only if some the inter-regional relationship is to be understood. This was exploitative relationship. You want to develop the culture, you want to develop the culture of agriculture in India in such a way that industrial products will be marketed easily. Now you can find that, take the case of sugarcane cultivation, or you can say that the big fruit cultivation, vegetable cultivation, the export quality um, fruits, and so all these require medicines which are manufactured in the urban sector, the corporate sector. So this is nothing but the encroachment of corporate sector, and it is the impact is on environment and people of this. So this region to region relationship, inter-regional relationship, If it is like Nimbi or Nimby syndrome, if it is like creating market for the chemical fertilizers and pesticides, then this is something destructive relationship. It is not a cooperative relationship. That geographical study can find it out. Similarly, the environmental studies can also uh, this understand this region to region relationship. Also, relationship between the nature and man, environment and man is studied in geography. But my dear friends, especially young scholars, one thing is not in your book, in your textbook, that what are the functions of environment? Environment has twofold functions. One is it provides you resources. This is one. The first function is to provide you resources. Anything which is created by man is based on nature. So, and all raw material comes from nature. So many medicines always say that some that the herbal. Many companies are eager to advertise that our product is herbal. See, each and every product is herbal. You cannot say that it is man-made. It is definitely it is in the nature. So anyway, but the second set of function of ecology or environment is that the how to it acts as sink, how to degrade the waste, how to assimilate this waste, how to swallow this waste, toxic waste, or even the liquid waste, or even the waste in the gaseous form, everything is taken care by environment. So that is the important function of environment. We have forgotten this, and that's why we considered that construction of dam is very good thing, but that kills the river. That kills the river in the sense that river stops doing the carrying out this important function of swallowing waste. So now why Ganga is not clean? Because it is so dirty, because it has stopped swallowing dirt, so stopped swallowing the pollution, water pollution. So the water pollution level should not be more than its capacity to degrade that particular pollution. And that is sustainable thing. So sustainability is simple relationship. That is, sustainable development is that particular development means how many x amount of resources that you use from nature. You are grabbing x tons of resources or x number of resources, and you are also using the y resources, which can be considered as renewable, recyclable. If y is equal to x, relationship is good. If y is far less than x is very, very high, then this relationship definitely is not a sustainable, because it has its potential to kill the environment, in the sense that environment will lose its capacity to swallow this kind of waste created through all these processes. So that's why one has to keep eye on this second function of environment. So the sixth point that I would like to highlight is that the both the subjects have concern for development for well-being of society, which is called as inclusive development. Geographical studies are also trying to say something about the future development. So any geographical research, you can find that after conclusion, they give some recommendations. Similarly, the environmental studies also give some recommendations, some suggestions. So all these suggestions are based on the concern for human beings and concern for development of mankind. And they are not, environment is not against development. Even geographical approach is not against development. Both the approaches try to give us the idea regarding good development. Oh, yes. Again, which is to be good and which is to be bad? What are the criteria for deciding? So, if development is inclusive, if it embraces all the people or all the sections of society, at least majority of the people, then we can call it as a real development. For example, in India, there are so many big roads. Now people are event managers, which are sitting in the top of the government. They are all event managers, and they always want to say something about the nodal hub or something like the four-lane road or the road which is very fast. You can reach from Mumbai to Nagpur within 3 hours or 4 hours, whatever it may be. But nobody is ambitious to say that our production of petroleum will be reduced by 10% from next year. Every year we will reduce the consumption of oil by 10%. No government, even Indian government, which is mainly important for achieving good quality development of people. So the construction of road is not meant for almost 80% of the people. How many people are having cars? 15%, 1 5, even less than 15%. People have the four-wheel cars or four-wheelers. So they may be happy for constructing road. What is the cost to make them happy? Cost is to construct the um, four wheelers factory or company, then cost to support that four wheelers factory by constructing good quality roads. Okay, and you just measure that cost, and that has the great impact on environment. The oil consumption will be more, the carbon footprint will be more. So what will so that increasing carbon footprint means inviting trouble like climate change. And who are the impacted people? So this impacted people, culprits are the rich people. Impacted people, sufferers are from the poor society. That's why the development should be inclusive in nature. It should not be exclusive. The development that I had given you, the first example is of exclusive development, meant for exclusively meant for 15% of population in India. And this, if instead of construction of road, if you develop some technology at village level which can reduce the footprint, which can reduce the requirement of water, irrigation water, which will reduce the requirement of oil, requirement of electricity in urban areas, requirement of the coal will be reduced by 10%. So you can develop, you can concentrate on this kind of development, then that development will be inclusive in nature. And this inclusive development is the real development. And both geographers, and the scholars from environmental science are interested in giving the planning instruments or developing the planning instruments for this kind of inclusive development. So, in that, I can give you some examples which are common from geographical studies as well as environmental studies. I'm fortunate enough to be a professor of environmental science and a person coming from the discipline like geography. And also because of some social activities, I'm also having the concern with people, people of India. So that's why I can give you some models in geography which shows in environmental concern. For example, optimization of cropping pattern. So optimization of cropping pattern is a model which gives you the cropping pattern in such a way that which will definitely develop the which will give you which will reduce the requirement of water in that particular village, and at the same time the profit will not be compromised. Profitability will also remain same. And the third thing is that the what will happen to the money or value addition or money earned, created, wealth created out of these natural resources and human resources in the villages. Whether that money will go, the flow of money, if it is going towards urban sector, towards corporate sector, then this is not inclusive development. If I am a farmer, absentee landlord, and if I am doing farming with machines, with robots, with we can say that the all things that the on my mobile I can irrigate my fields, etc., etc., etc. So then this is this means that it is exclusive development. If local people are participating in the development, then that is an inclusive development at a village level. And it was dreamed by Mahatma Gandhi that villages should be economically independent. Then and then only villagers will be empowered. And then only the democracy will have its roots in Indian soil. And that is the need of the hour. So all these things are can be studied with environmental approach or geo-environmental approach or environmental studies and geographical studies. So hopefully I wish that the young scholars would try to carry out such studies, embracing the poor people and also embracing the natural hazards or the nature ecology, the existence of birds and vegetation cover, and how it is related to our own development, and so on. So, I wish you all a great, great future ahead. Thank you very much.